Good morning, class. I hope we're all well. So, this is lesson 8, week 4. We'll be looking at a summary of international agreements of the 1920s. So, the first one is the Washington Conferences of 1921 to 1922, where we see that USA, Japan, Britain, and France all agreed to limit the size of their navies, and this was intended to improve relations between the USA and Japan. And the second treaty that we'll look at is the Rapallo Treaty of 1922. This is where both the USSR and Germany re-established their diplomatic relations by signing a mutual agreement at Rapallo at the Genoa Conference of 1922. And the third international agreement that we look at is the Locarno Treaty. Locarno Treaties of 1925. So under this, Germany accepted its borders as decided by the Treaty of Versailles, and this was a welcome move, especially by France, and this paved way for Germany to eventually join the League of Nations in 1926. So different agreements. There were different agreements which involved Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Belgium, and Czechoslovakia. And then we'll move on to the Kellogg-Briand Pact of 1928. So here we'll find that 65 nations agreed not to use force to settle disputes, and this pact was also referred to as the Act of Paris, and it was Briand's idea. Unfortunately, this pact failed because it made no reference to sanctions against nations that broke its pledge. Then we'll move on to the Young Plan of 1929, where we find that it reduced Germany's reparations payment, and Owen Young, who was an American banker, chaired a committee which reduced Germany's reparations from 6,600 million euros to 2,000 million euros, which was to be paid over the next 59 years. And then finally, we look at the Dawes Plan. So a conference was held in London in 1924, and General Dawes, who was an American representative, chaired the conference. Although there was no reduction in the total amount of reparations Germany was to pay, it was agreed that Germany could make annual payments depending on what she could afford. So this was meant to give Germany more time to recover from her economic crisis. And we see that USA gave Germany a loan totaling to 800 million gold marks. And due to this, France was now assured of receiving reparations from Germany, and she agreed to withdraw her troops from the Ruhr. So the plan was meant to avert economic crisis in Germany. And that is it for today. So that is a summary of the international agreements of the 1920s, and the international agreements that we've looked at so far are the Washington Conferences of 1921 to 1922, the Rapallo Treaty of 1922, then we also have the Locarno Treaties of 1925, as well as the Kellogg-Briand Pact of 1928, and the Young Plan of 1929, and finally the Dawes Plan.